Imagine reaching the top of Wall Street, prestige, security, and access to strategies that generate massive returns. Then realizing the very system that made you successful was shutting out nearly everyone else.
So I was working in New York in my typical finance job, obviously learning the nuances of the hedge fund and the private equity world and how exactly there are these differences in accreditation standards and how basically individuals with more capital and more priority and more access to basically better performing investments. We are not charging more than $3 a month maximum on that account, regardless of how much is invested.
Imagine reaching the top of Wall Street, prestige, security, and access to strategies that generate massive returns. Then realizing the very system that made you successful was shutting out nearly everyone else. That's the moment today's guest decided to walk away. Instead of managing money for the wealthy, he set out to prove the impossible, building a platform that makes elite investment strategies transparent, affordable, and available to everyday people. In this episode, you'll learn how he built with purpose, why he chose pricing that disrupts billion-dollar models, and the lessons any entrepreneur can take on scaling, innovation, and staying true to mission. And the man behind it all, Justin Kuyper. Welcome to the show, Justin.
Hello, Linda. It's great to be here. Thank you for having me.
So you had everything most finance professionals dream of, the security, the success on Wall Street. What was that exact moment you realized the system was broken for regular people? Because before you answer that question, I'm really intrigued by this because years ago when I was at my corporate role at Yahoo, we were doing interviews and I sat in the audience watching an interview with somebody that was incredibly wealthy, and he made a lot of these great investment choices in the early days. And then I wanted to know how, and he mentioned the investment firm as well. And then I looked into it because I'm always fascinated about investments and growing my wealth as well, making your money work for you. So I looked it up, but you couldn't invest because you had to be an accredited investor. And at the time, I was still working in a corporate job. So, you know what I mean? I didn't have access to that. And I thought, oh my gosh, it's just so unfair. If I, had that amount of money, then I'd be able to. Now, over time, I've found other investments as well. So I am accredited now, but, I understand, what like the accredited means and how unfair it is for everyone. So tell me about your story and why you decided to create what you created.
Exactly. Yes. So yeah, one thing, I think you hit the nail on the head there. So I was working in New York in my typical finance job, obviously learning the nuances of the hedge fund and the private equity world and how exactly there are these differences in accreditation standards and how basically individuals with more capital get access and more priority and more access to basically better performing investments. So that sort of was like a recurring theme going into work every day, going into the office, learning how this business was structured. The one thing I think, it was sort of a combination of pieces. There was that element. It was at the place, one of the places I was working, I had access to specific data sets and analytics of every top hedge fund and private equity fund you could think of, like the Blackstones of the world, the KKRs, and we had all the data. So like you're staring at this all day, you're working through them, and you realize that the investor lists are not that long, meaning it's not relative to the populations of, even whether it's the United States or Australia or any country, like it's a very short list, right? Usually these lists are endowments, a few very high net worth individuals and other organizations. And that's it. At the time as well, there were other platforms or at least early stage startups that were trying to do on some level what we were doing. So I think obviously this was in earlier days of Robinhood, but that was taking off at least as a trading venue for individuals. But what we ultimately realized was that even people in my own cohort, they were struggling to get into these sort of highly accredited investments and even just get the high performance, like these high performance outcomes that basically certain individuals were getting. And it was merely just a question of lack of access, but there was also like, there wasn't a solution built. So I think that was sort of the initial point where I was like, something should be done about this, but the question was how, right? I think what happened, so that there was that initial stage. Then we started building this platform. To be honest with you, we didn't even have a clear solution. We just sort of were building the front end and the back end code without having our partner in place for at least, I think there was a good 3 or 4 months in, after which we partnered with basically a large public market cap firm. So Interactive Brokers, they're probably the third or fourth largest brokerage in the United States, actually. So other than Fidelity, Schwab, I think they're, either third or fourth, I forget. But we've partnered with them, and they've sort of created the solution, at least on the back-end infrastructure side. So we're built on top of their infra stack, and it's basically a tech solution where any individual can sign up. Well, any individual, we're currently live in 11 US states. We are currently expanding to India, but for any individuals who are interested, they can go on our website, openvest.co, and click on Get Access Soon. They can enter their name, their email, their phone number, and that's where they can register, and we will ping every individual who's on that list the minute we're live in their location. Obviously, we do have global expansion plans, and we're currently going through that. That said, the goal was ultimately to bridge a finance solution, a regulatory solution, and a technological solution all in one platform, right? In order to make something like this possible, those three pieces have to come together. With this partner, at least, we had the sort of technical solution on the back end. The regulatory side, we had to figure out. I would say that, growing up in a household where, both parents are lawyers, I was able to at least dig into the nuances of how to make this possible. I would not say that, there was a lot of work obviously involved with that. But at the same time, at least in the United States, there was a regulation with the SEC. It was called basically you have a tech exemption. So as long as you're offering a service exclusively through a technological platform, there were certain exemptions on the federal level that basically made it possible to create this type of solution. So part of it was the timing, part of it was putting the pieces together. And then there was the other aspect of obviously giving the investments, right? So obviously having the experience working in finance, all we've done essentially is provided curated solutions on a platform so that individuals can see that these returns sometimes are performing between 30 and 40% annualized on the longer term. And on the shorter term, we have shorter term solutions as well, meaning for people who just want their everyday income, we offer between 6.5% and 9.5% annualized dividend yields on top of anywhere from 9 to 12% appreciation per year. So we have both solutions on the platform today. And so basically to devise all of this, obviously we have to, it's an actively managed sort of like the way we say it is a Citadel or a Bridgewater or a Blackstone, basically in your pocket type of a solution. So that's what we've put together so that any individual can meet those. And the accreditation standards don't matter here as long as your account is approved. So that's the key thing here, because you're still getting exposure to the same types of investments that basically the upper echelon, 1% of these wealthy individuals that you mentioned are getting access to. And anybody can start with as little as $300 or more. And so that was the idea. And so we've put that in place.
So you're saying that you'll be able to see what those 1%, the big firms, what they're investing in, and what essentially copy that model and just put a certain amount.
Similar model. So we have our proprietary sort of algorithms, and we're offering that to the users. And again, that is constantly managed on our side, but we are offering that to you directly. Exactly. So any individual that signs up through the application can see these curated options. I think we have about 6 right now. And so depending on we answer a few simple questions just sort of based on your life circumstances and where you're at and, what type of age you're at and all of these things. And we give you default recommendations, but you are free to pick anything you want. So even for the individual who doesn't have the time, the expertise, or the knowledge, they can still go in and be able to just click through and sign up, enter the same information you would at any sort of standard investment account. And once you're signed up and your bank account is linked, you're free to to invest and just see how it goes. What we've noticed is that everybody that's used our platform initially, more than 80% of the individuals have subsequently reinvested. So we're very confident in our model. That's why we're letting individuals come in even at the low dollar amounts, because we're at a stage where we're looking to keep on growing and expanding and ultimately build that trust with our user base and continue from there.
Okay, so let's take it back. We mentioned the product. I'll ask more about the product too, but
Sure.
a lot of entrepreneurs talk about finding their why. And for you, it was walking away from financial security and trying to build something with a purpose. So how do you know when it's true purpose versus just being unhappy with success? Because, you had, like, I'm guessing, a high security job, corporate paying job back then. So what was your why for doing this?
Yeah.
Ready to revolutionize your content game? Meet Modern IQ, the AI tool that creates SEO optimized, plagiarism free blog posts with just one click. No more writer's block or endless hours of content creation. Generate high quality articles that boost visibility, save time, and slash marketing costs. Whether you're a startup or an established business, this tool is your content team, marketing expert, and SEO guru in one. Click on the link in the description to claim your free article and join forward-thinking entrepreneurs who are working smarter, not harder. The future of effortless marketing is here. Are you ready to dive in?
I think that's a good question. I think one part of that was there were a lot more individuals that were asking me questions than I was able to give answers to. So I think of that as sort of a supply and demand mismatch sort of imbalance. So, obviously you go to your job and you're satisfying your clients and, but I think I touched on earlier, maybe that was a much shorter list. I thought there could be much more of an impact if something like this could be done and done well. That was one part. Two, there was no existing solution like this, meaning there are a lot of competitors, I think, at least in the US and most developed countries, where they basically have a different business name and they're offering the exact same product or some slight variation of the exact same thing. So nobody was quite doing it in this way. We are the only actively managed platform. Everybody else tries to mimic some index or basically implicitly gives you the matching index performance while taking a fee. What does that mean? That means it guarantees underperformance, right? Because if they're taking a fee on top of matching an index, by the time they take out their cut, you're essentially left with a slightly underperforming asset. So we were like, well, that doesn't make any sense either.
So how does your platform work?
Right. So in the actively managed space, what we're doing is we are modeling every option on our platform, every sort of investment option that you can click into and deploy capital into, off of what the best fund managers are doing. So based off of what the Blackstones are doing, the Citadels and all. And so we are constantly keeping track of that via our proprietary algorithms and our data sources. The other thing we're doing is we are able to make money, at least in the US, I can say we can make money long and short. So even in down markets, we can preserve capital, whereas other platforms will not offer you that because they're just mimicking an ETF or an index of a sort. So those are two distinct advantages, at least with our platform. And again, we're only asking individuals to try it. Again, there's a low dollar entry. You don't have to, we know it will work. So because like we've said, the initial users have subsequently reinvested. So as long as anybody sort of just throws in a few $100 or more and sticks around, they'll see it work. And then I think that's usually when we win over at least our existing users. But going back to the why, so one was I thought that there was a much broader impact here where I thought it could make much more of a difference, because if you're affecting a greater number of individuals, then that can really change things. And we're even seeing that now. So even in our current expansion into India, this product does not exist there. It just doesn't. So this could open up the entire market there. So, these are things that instead of playing by the same rules, I guess I always had a sort of slightly entrepreneurial bent. It's more fun to try to disrupt things, especially, when you're making some progress in that regard, and just see where it goes. I mean, obviously that comes with its own challenges. You have to deal with certain legal regulations. You have to deal with making sure all the pieces of this platform are working very smoothly. You have to get all of the integrations you could possibly think of in place. So it's basically comes down to staying disciplined every day and having a large, or very high energy level and dealing with a bunch of little things that you have to sort of get through each day.
Are
What I
you
will
doing that
say
all
is
by yourself or with the team?
with, yes, so exactly. So I spent almost 6 months in India with a team. So it's me, my co-founder, and then we have a core group of engineers and computer scientists there. The good news is that we can scale up with our existing team up to 70 individuals. Right now we're about six, just managing this entire platform. But yeah, so it's been basically a small team, but I did decide to go there and work with them day in and day out. So I spent basically, the equivalent of 6.5 days a week just working with them full time in person. I don't think this type of platform, and I would actually encourage all entrepreneurs to, if they're working with a team, to work in person, at least at some level, because if you're too remote, it will just happen where pieces will slide and the execution will not be at the highest level. And then you will ultimately face challenges as a result of that. So at least in the initial stages, make sure you're working in person and collaborating on, because there are always small things that naturally come up, small challenges or things, and you will have to solve them within a very short period of time. So I do recommend in person to the greatest extent possible.
Get to the India part, but one question I wanted to ask you is like, are you managing it with bots or with AI in place, or are you doing it with humans managing the money? And what are the fees like as well? Because you know how you mentioned before, the other companies kind of like want you to have set fee so it's more profitable. But what's unique about your platform? And
Yeah.
yeah, so the
That's a
fees
very
and
good question. So
yeah,
I'll start with the fees. Yeah. So the one thing that is at least very unique about our platform is it is a low cost flat fee model. On the retail side, at least in the US so far, we are not charging more than $3 a month maximum on that account, regardless of how much is invested. So let me give you an example. If you invest $5,000, the cost is $3 a month. If you invested then $10,000, meaning added 5,000 more, the cost stays flat on the retail side. We have IRA and 401k accounts as well, meaning for the US. And those we charge anywhere from $5 a month up to $40 a month at 500,000 or more, but it's still lower than the cost of any ETF or fee that you're paying in assets under management. We make more money on that front, but obviously there's more complexity with onboarding those types of accounts. On the user side, we are comfortable giving the user and not making money. We want to run a customer centric platform. So we're not viewing the $3 a month as, oh, we want to derive profit from that. At this stage, we want to have our users trust us and give us meaning show the value there. The thing is, if we have enough of a user base there, we can make money in other ways, in much more creative ways, without charging the users. So that is sort of our baseline approach. So
wait,
that's
it's
that's
not
how.
that much though. How can you stay profitable? Is there any other fees, such as a commission based off the profits that are
No, no, no.
coming
What
in?
I'm saying is we're not thinking of this as a short-term profit solution. I'm saying we're happy to even break even or lose some money, at least on the retail side, in order
Mm.
to achieve scale essentially. And what I'm saying is at that point, we will go B2B, we'll sell infrastructure, API. There are other ways to make money. So we want to give the users as much value as possible. If you actually think of the biggest platforms in the world, the Googles and whatnot, they're actually not charging the user. You want to give the user the service and give them the value that they have. And then you can make money in other creative ways.
Wow, I like that because like Amazon wasn't profitable for years and
Right,
now they've built the
exactly. And
infrastructure.
that was very intentional, right? And there was almost 20 years where they were not deriving a profit, and even today on the retail side, they do make a profit. It's a very thin margin, but it does add up to quite a bit just given their sheer size. Exactly.
And are
Exactly.
you bootstrapping or are you getting capital? Like you mentioned before, you're piggybacking off the back of interactive brokers, but building
Right.
this platform, are you bootstrapping? Like, did you go over to India, bootstrap it yourself as well? Well, how did that work?
Yes, correct. So we do. So I will say we are at the point now where at the end of Q4 of this year, we will take investor capital. We have what we call hard capital commitments, meaning investors who it's just a matter of making a phone call, or just these people know me and we've had extended conversations. They will commit capital, but we are looking to raise up to 1.2 million for this round at a 6.6 money post. But we have 350K committed to date. I mean, that will be enough for us just in external capital. And then obviously we have bootstrapped it to this point, meaning me and my co-founder. So we can continue that way. We will continue to put obviously our own capital into it, but we're currently having conversations as well with other externals, because now we've hit a point where we've hit some level of growth and we've just expanded into 8 other states, and then we're going to keep taking it from there. India, as I mentioned, is on the cards for early next year. So yeah.
That's fascinating because, I'm guessing with, the finance, there's a lot of, like you said, regulations as well. And have you overcome all that so that you can expand to other markets? Because you've built it obviously from day one so that you can, you thought about the long term and the big goal vision to be global as well, which is
Correct.
amazing.
So the good news, I can add 1 or 2 points on that, is that yes, exactly. We built that on day one with that intention in mind, knowing that even if this worked in one country, we would just sort of want to replicate that across others. And so we built the infrastructure in such a way where at least on the technology can be easily replicated and just sort of localized to that region. And then on top of that, it's just a matter of complying with their regulation. But what we've noticed, at least in India so far, is it's very similar to the way the SEC operates in the US. So there's a very similar structure. And so we've done that first. Others have been like, are you coming to Europe yet? And we're like, we just want to get a foothold in these countries first. But given the regulatory complexity there, we'll sort of wait a little bit, at least until, but yes, the countries that we can easily map to ours. So India's one, Brazil would be another. We can sort of just replicate without too much extra work or headache.
May I ask why you're choosing those countries? Because they're not the wealthiest countries. So why are you choosing those countries?
I think that's a big reason though, right? Especially for what we're trying to do. So one thing is, especially for India, there's a very tech-centric focus. Like there are a lot of obviously the massive consumer base that everybody's heard of, but beyond that, there's just like they're very tech savvy. Obviously, I've spent time there and have learned sort of the ins and outs of what is being offered there. There is no product like this that exists there. And so we think, and then the other key piece actually is they have something called the UPI, which is the Universal Payment Infrastructure. Their speed of payment is actually one of the fastest in the world. And so we think with our type of platform, the user adoption will be much, much quicker. And so that is another reason that we thought, okay, we have to do it sort of here. And that would be our sort of first, meaning country outside of the US that we would try and do it in. So, yeah.
I love the mindset that this mindset of building from day one to think global, and then, expanding different countries. Like you're very strategic about things as well. So that's powerful. And that $3 monthly fee, it's not the industry percentage, how they take a percentage. So how can entrepreneurs actually design pricing? If they were to create something, how can they design pricing that's fair to customers, but also sustainable for business growth? Because when I think about what you mentioned, I'm like, that's why I had to ask you, are you bootstrapped or not? Because how can you fund this? And the good thing is that you went to India, and that is just the cost there for developers. It's just so much better. Yeah. And now that you can use AI.
So, yeah, it's lower, but then at the same time, what I will say is I sort of got lucky in the sense that the guys that I work with, they're not necessarily, they live in India, but they're not localized to India. So what I mean by that is these guys have had experience with clients in Australia, clients in the UK, clients in the US. They're very well versed in how to deal with different groups of individuals and their different problems in the tech sector. So that helped a lot in at least in my personal case. What I will say is when other founders or entrepreneurs are thinking about profitability, so like I said, we embedded a profitable model, at least on the 4K and the IRA side. So even with those accounts, obviously we started with the retail accounts, but we were already incorporating some profitability just in that segment. And so that does help a little bit. So what I would say is always design your product or service, especially on the pricing models, to think creatively about that. Like, what can you charge more for, and what are you happy to charge less for, but you can still, obviously, with the goal of acquiring a larger user base, or serving more customers. So I would be very strategic about that, but always think of it from like a two-pronged approach.
Yeah, and it's good that you had the inside knowledge to see the data and which ones were making more. So that helps, and your experience helped there as well when you're managing
Yeah,
people's
and
money.
and the other thing I will say, especially in our case on the IRA and the 401k side, in the US, this is a very broken system, and it's meaning in the sense that nobody's offering anything like this on the 401k or the IRA side. It's always the same standard products that put you in. There's, I don't know if it's like 100 or 150 different sort of positions, and it's just like, if you're diversified to such an extent that you're implicitly guaranteeing underperformance. And so we're like, this whole like model needs to be completely changed. And so we've not seen a single person or a single company, at least on that side of the equation, try to change it. So that's when we were like, okay, we've already built the retail side, let's just build the IRA and the 401k side and just do that as well. And so we've just started that. So, I mean, yeah, but that's been going well as well. So, we've been acquiring users there. Our plan will obviously be to go B2B as well, but at least on the user side for now, we're seeing some level of growth.
Interesting. I want to talk about the business model and disruption to give entrepreneurs, some insights as well, because you're competing against firms with massive marketing budgets as well. So how can bootstrapped entrepreneurs win by focusing on the real value instead of visibility?
Yeah. So one thing, at least on our side, is that people will pay for performance. So one thing we're showing, at least even if you signed into the platform today, you can see how the returns would have done in all of the designated options over the last 3 years, 4 years, 5 years. It's all there. And so we've noticed that sort of gravitates or intrigues the users. Obviously, our pricing model is very unique because nobody else is offering that. But on what I will say is that obviously having partnered with a larger firm that has sort of big resources, that's also really helped because they can sort of help on that front, especially when it comes to certain cost absorptions or taking care of certain licenses that we don't have to worry about because right now we're built on top of their stack. And so they've sort of enabled that. So obviously partnerships, I think, is a key part of entrepreneurship that maybe most entrepreneurs don't look at. And I would almost encourage anyone who's trying to start a business in any segment, meaning if they can enable partnerships, they should with much bigger companies, 100%, because you want to leverage what they are offering or their branding or anything that they can offer you in a sort of mutually beneficial way. I think that's the key, especially in the earlier days, to sort of get to the next level, act as a wedge.
I'm guessing that you had a lot, like the relationships built in from when with the previous role. So you had the relationship there, and that's how you were able to partner with them. Is that correct?
Actually, so on this one, no, it was more just like, so I mean, in some ways, yes, but this was not a direct relationship. This was actually more a matter of, actually cold outreach, to be honest with you. We were just sort of explaining what we've built to date and how we thought it could be interesting for them to partner with us. And there was just sort of a click from there, jumped on a couple calls and they were like, yeah, we're happy, because they were also looking, because one thing we've noticed is that the trend, especially in the United States, but I think it's also going into Europe and other parts as well, even the top private equity firms and the hedge funds, they're all trying to get down into the like smaller users who can, even if it's smaller amounts of capital, but more on a volume basis. And so given that we were already offering that, they were happy to partner with us because they viewed that as a way to add value to their existing, or at least what they were trying to go into in terms of their existing lines of business. So I think there was just sort of a mutual connection at that point because this was something they were trying to carve their niche into. So they thought this was a good way for them to do that. And so because we're going direct to consumer, unlike most of these PE firms and others who usually will just route through a third-party middleman. And then what they'll do is they'll quote you a bunch of miscellaneous fees here and there. And even if they're going through the vanguards and the whatnots that's usually the way it's structured. I mean, just having worked in the industry, I know that that's not the way to get to the user. Like you have to go direct. You can't just like say, oh, I think one company they partnered with Vanguard and they said we have a 14-year lockup period. And it was like nobody's going to sign up for that. So
Mm.
good luck. Yeah, so we thought going direct to consumer with the solution that we've already built was just the best way to do it. And again, it's just a low cost entry, so anybody can just try it, see how it works, and then we're happy to build that trust over time.
And when you went to build it in India, talk about some of the major challenges that you had to go through because was it a totally new country for you? You had to do a lot of prep work before. Was it the relationships or was it I'm guessing because it's a different cultural environment as well. So it's a benefit that you were there on the ground as well instead of doing it remotely. But I'm guessing there was still a lot of challenges. Did you build a team from India to do it for you, or is it still remote work and then you just went over there? How did it? Talked about some of the
Yeah,
challenges that you had to go
yeah.
through.
So the team I've worked with, they were already a team, so the meaning they were already a sort of a core group. I guess the thing is, because we were working on this so intensely, I never felt like part of the time while I was there, I didn't feel like I was in another, meaning I was just so wired into building this that I didn't really think about other things. But I guess that was more, as we were getting started. Culturally, I think, yeah, I think one thing that helps. So, I mean, I will say that my mom is Indian, so meaning she was born in India. So I think I do have some level of familiarity, just on a personal note. But that being said, I was living in a completely different part of the country, so I wasn't just based in Mumbai or Delhi or somewhere. It was actually in a more industrial city. So I got used to just spending time there. Effectively, I was living in a hotel room, but that was got used to that. Culturally, I think I was okay because uh, the country. I mean, English is widely spoken. There weren't. I didn't feel so out of place, if I'm being honest with you. The challenges were more on the building side of it. I mean, it took 6 full months just to build this in terms of getting all the regulatory approvals. So working with obviously the US, even while I was there, making sure that the tech stacks were integrating perfectly and all the APIs were connecting beautifully so that every time a user clicks on the screen, they're just thinking, oh, let me go to the, but what's actually happening is there are so many connection points to run through that to even make it possible. So I think that there were a lot of different little pieces that were coming together. But obviously, yeah, I would say culturally wasn't so much. I didn't feel, at least, it was much of a challenge. But then again, I'm pretty comfortable in most countries around the world. So I don't know if I'm the person to say. But one thing I will say is that working in person with your team is probably the most important thing. Because one thing we noticed were that little challenges kept coming up. So, for example, oh, the API is not working today. Okay, then you have to go and figure out why. Or, okay, this regulation we've managed to resolve, but then what about this other piece where we could get attacked for not complying here? Okay, now let's go talk to, our legal consultant, figure out how to make that work. Signing all the compliance agreements, not just for us, but for our partners, because they have to make sure that they're abiding by all the laws. So we had to build in all of the sort of legal terms and conditions, privacy policy, all the disclosures, so that a user can just click a checkbox. They can read through all of them, but just click a checkbox and move on. All of these pieces were sort of coming into play. But in terms of spending the time there, honestly, it may have been an adjustment at first, but because I was spending so much time there, I mean, nearly 6 months, I got so used to it that now I don't think anything of it.
That's all right. I want to talk about like the psychology. Now we've talking about the business part and the building part and the why, but this is something that I want to understand as well from your point of view, because there's a psychology of wealth as well, because you've seen both worlds. You've managed money for the ultra wealthy and now you're serving everyday investors. So from your opinion, what's the biggest difference in how they think about money and opportunity?
That's a very good question. There is a huge mindset difference. I think what the best thing I can encourage people who are the wealthy, that because they've either built the wealth or have been passed down the lessons from the prior generation, they implicitly understand how money is made, like meaning in terms of like building up equity and equity positions, and how you can do creative things once you have that. I think the first thing that we see with people who don't come from that mindset is, I think the best thing they can do is get on the ladder and just see it work. What we've noticed with individuals who don't come from that sort of background or have that understanding, once they're on the ladder and they see it work for them even a little bit, then they become very curious. So I think what it is, it's like it's sparking that curiosity, but seeing it work for them. Um, yeah, so that is obviously a continuing evolvement, even with our platform currently. Obviously, the education piece, understanding, the different elements of investing and how to think about different things. Sometimes markets shift, right? Micro, macro dynamics change. Obviously, we take care of all that on our side, but also there's a certain way to know how to think about like the decisions you make at those pivotal moments can also make a difference. And so I think that is a constant education piece that we're working on more and more now, but you have to explain it in very clear and simple language, especially to those individuals who haven't been a part of that game or that system. So yeah, that is something we're continuing to work through. But what I have noticed is that at least for individuals who they've been exposed to it in some facet or another, whether it's their manager or their boss, or they've seen somebody with something that they want or have or something of that sort. That's usually the bridge that gets the people who have not been a part of the sort of the larger sort of wealthier dynamic to start to get involved in these types. Ultimately, that is the point of the platform, is obviously to enable the opportunity for everyone else as well. And so, yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of, I think, education pieces there, because you got to have a bit of you have to accept risk, especially when the markets are going, you got to be willing to be able to handle
Well,
when the money goes
I think
down.
there's a way to think about risk that is different. So I think most people misquantify risk. Like ultimately, like what is risk, right? Like there are there's good volatility and there's bad volatility, the same way that there's good debt and there's bad debt, right? Like you can use debt to amplify your wealth, and you can also use it to run into the barracks if you choose. But in that way, like knowing how to think about different things. But that's why, at least on our platform, we break it down into sort of longer term investments and shorter term. The shorter term obviously has less volatility, but we are giving you the higher dividend yields that come with that. Yeah,
But
I
people
think
don't like
that is
losing money too, because sometimes when they see the market drop, I don't know, really sophisticated investors know how to do what is it? A put and a call. Like, just
correct.
hang
Yeah,
on. So a put is when you put, like, you're betting on the market to go down, right? Is
dropping.
that,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah,
exactly.
dropping.
And then
But
what they can
yeah,
do is also use leverage and use the proceeds from that to then reinvest at lower prices. But there are different ways to, exactly, there are different ways to get involved at those points. And yeah, exactly. There's all of those strategies that basically, so I think a key part of this, so to be honest with you, we've actually just we've acquired our initial user set over, meaning our initial months of launch, and now we're at the point where we're starting to do small paid marketing. So now we're going to focus a lot on that, meaning that piece, especially on the educational, on the visual piece, to explain to people, through different imagery, through different sort of advertising, how this can actually make a material difference in yours and your family's lives. Because ultimately, if you come into this, what we've noticed with our initial users, they may not know the ins and outs of the financial structures, but they know that at least once they've seen it work, now they're like, okay, I have to put in more money. I have to like make sure that this is like a priority item on my sort of every time I draw a paycheck. That's the other thing we have as well, is
dollar
now
cost
an auto
averaging it.
deduct. Yeah, but we have an auto deduct feature, so they can literally take it out of their bank account, just a certain portion. They don't even have to think about it. It just gets automatically pulled with, meaning once the user gives consent, and dollar cost averaging it. But what I would say is there's also an element of compounding where the time in the market also makes a difference, especially over time, meaning how long you're staying in certain investments can add to your compounding effect as well. So that is another contributor that helps. But correct. One thing we've seen, it's just a matter of making people understand that sort of these are the dynamics of just how, economies work at the end of the day.
Wow, this is fascinating. So looking back, what beliefs about money and success had to shift for you to fully commit to this path? Because you've taken on a lot of challenges. You know, you've mentioned there's so many different pieces of the puzzle. Clearly, you've got a growth mindset as well, and you've got the right people, a good team as well. So, you know, what beliefs about and it seems like you're lucky that you've had the legal parents as well to help you on that part as well. But what beliefs about money and success did you have to shift to fully commit to this path? Because, you mentioned you also had that entrepreneurial spirit, but most people want safety and stability. And if they're already doing so well in their corporate job, you know, not many people want to jump and change and make an impact. Like, obviously
Yeah,
you saw a missing piece of a puzzle, that there was an
yeah,
opportunity there too. So you jumped on
yeah,
that opportunity early.
correct. So one piece of it was just in the job, yes, you're paid well, and yes, all the perks and whatnot, but ultimately that is the status quo, and I just viewed that, like, I thought, like, you could touch much more, you could touch a larger number of individuals with this type of solution. Was I think that's ultimately what pushed me the most to do this. I think having the other thing was, I felt, yeah, I reached a point where doing the job was moderately satisfying, but wasn't quite at the level where I felt really sad. This was clearly more exciting to me, and was something that I wanted to sort of stick my head down into and see what could come of it. But also, it was the potential of it. Like, once I realized, oh, it's not just here; it's there. It's like every part of the world. Like, I was hearing the same sort of recurring themes and stories, and I was like, well, this solution can actually be much bigger than anything even I conceived of on day one. And so that, I think that's sort of what kept me going, and obviously providing that opportunity to everyone else in, like, with a solution that didn't exist. I looked at every competitor across, well, mostly the US, but also India, Europe. They were all doing the same version of the same thing. And I thought we had a unique entry point into the market. And so at that point, I just couldn't, it sort of became my daily obsession at that point. So, I would say that, yeah, the working in the industry got me involved. Obviously, there's sort of a natural financial interest there, but the broader technical solution and putting this in place in the market was much more exciting.
And definitely, I think making an impact on everyday people, that's really powerful as well. I
Yeah,
find that really
yeah.
inspiring. But were there any times that you had so many challenges that you wanted to give up? Because it seems like, you're one of the first that's doing it. There would be a lot of restrictions in place and whatnot. Did you ever want to feel like you wanted to give up at any point?
I wouldn't say give up. Usually, when there are too many restrictions, my first thought is always, well, what if we tried it this way? Or what if we tried it that way? So I'm always trying to find a way around
Growth mindset.
what
Yes.
exists in the current system.
Yes.
And usually there is always a solution, even if people are not explicitly telling you. So sometimes they'll just try and, hide it from you. But if you do enough work, you'll find the ways. So I think, yeah, but yes, of course, I would be lying to say that there were not points of where we thought that, maybe it wasn't possible, or the roadblocks were too much, or the integrations were not working properly. And so we had to go back to the drawing board and figure out, okay, how do we do this better? There were many, even while I was in India, there were at least a few touch points like that I can go back to. But what I would say is, yeah, I think everything comes down to ultimately breaking things down step by step. And so, if you're staring at sort of the end solution or Mount Everest, but you don't know how to climb the first steps, then it seems like an impossible task. But what we did, I think one thing we were very good at, especially, my team and I, was like breaking everything down into small steps. We're like, okay, is this API working? Is this technical piece working? Yes. Okay, now let's try it again. Okay, now let's build on that, and let's make sure that this piece is also working. And you go step by step right there. And so with our partners, we were able to devise that type of solution. Yeah,
Do
that was
you
the way.
have like any mentors that have helped you, inspired you, any books that have helped you to become who you are?
Yeah, there's one book I would recommend to every entrepreneur that really sticks to mind. It's called The Everything Store by Brad Stone. So this gives a very, very, very deep dive into the building of Amazon from the early days all through, I believe. Yeah, there are a lot of stories in that book that you will not find anywhere else, and I thought they were very insightful. that probably has been a key book in shaping my mindset. But also, yeah, I mean, I did read a lot. So I mean, I've read all the Warren Buffett books from 1965 up to 2019. I used to read for fun, and yeah, but in terms of shaping the mindset, that's one book I would really recommend for anyone.
Nice. And how do you personally define success?
I think success is being able to pursue what you want to pursue in your life. So I think of money as sort of an enabling tool. And so it's like as long as you are able to pursue your passions and do what you want, I would consider you a successful individual. That would be my definition.
I like that. That's unique because I haven't known. I always try to ask people that. How do you define success? Everyone defines success differently, but that's a very simple but powerful one too. And then it makes me think, yeah, this is what I love to do. I build a business and I love to create. I love to help and impact people. But I also get to have that freedom to be able to do something that I love, like the podcasting and learning. And I love learning from other successful entrepreneurs. So yeah, I like that definition. Now, behind financial success and what you've built, what legacy do you want to leave behind as an entrepreneur?
Yeah, so I think obviously we're still in relatively earlier days, but I would say the impact of this type of platform would be something that would be much more important to me than sort of the P&L or the bottom line. I think ultimately, if we can help more people retire, pay for their kids' educations, pay down their mortgages, then I would consider this. And you know the key is that user adoption is what is disruptive. Ideas on their own are not disruptive, meaning just because they're sitting in your head. So with user adoption, I think it proves out the success and the impact of sort of this type of platform. And that's ultimately what we're going for right now.
That's very inspiring, beautiful. Guys, if you found this helpful and inspirational, please do me a favor. If you're watching on YouTube, tell me what was the key takeaway points, and are you curious to open an account as well? And if you're listening on the podcast, please hit that follow button, leave a review. It does help. Is there anything I've missed? Any key messages that you want to leave with the audience, Justin? What's the secret weapon behind every top CEO and entrepreneur? A game-changing executive assistant. Hermessi gives you access to elite EAs who supercharge your productivity. From payroll and admin to social media and customer support, they handle it all so you can focus on growth and big picture decisions. These aren't your average assistants. They're expertly trained, thoroughly screened, and equipped with the latest AI tools to work smarter and faster. Ready to delegate and dominate? Get 15% off your first 2 months with code INSPIRE15. Don't wait. Visit Hermessi, that's HERMESSI.webflow.io, and take back your time today.
Yeah, I'll just give a few places where people can reach out or look at the platform. So we are on Instagram and Twitter. So it's called OpenVest1, the number one. You can find us on LinkedIn as well. And then I'll leave my email as well if anybody wants to reach out. So it's jak@openvest.co. So if anyone wants to reach out or learn more, and then again, you can go on the website, which is just openvest.co, and you can click on get access soon, meaning for individuals who are not currently in one of the 11 states we're in. You can just put your name, your phone, and your email, and we'll just ping you the minute we're live in your location.
What about Australia? Will you be able to be open to Australia eventually?
Yes, exactly. So I think what we're going to do, part of what we're going to do is use that wait list for where we go next. And so like if we have more individuals in a particular location, we'll use that as a guide at least to say, okay, people here really want this now. So we'll sort of determine that as our next country of growth. And obviously pending the round close, we're going to start looking, meaning move with, I mean, I feel like we're moving pretty quickly, but even more quickly and sort of go with full speed ahead.
Beautiful. Justin, thank you so much for your time. I've got some great tips and very good advice there. So I really appreciate that. And I wish you all the best with building and scaling this globally.
Thank you, Linda. Thank you for the time. Appreciate it.